listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, take two. Just as we were starting, just as I was warming up, the power went out here in Crowley.
Oof, it got dark.
It did. The studio doesn't have any windows in it, so it got dark in a hurry, and we were out for about 20 seconds, but it scrambled the internet, that's for sure.
Yep. That's working though.
It's working now, so they can't keep me from podcasting number 600.
600!
Yeah. I am surprised. I've been very blessed, like I was getting into the first run. I've been very blessed. I've had great sponsors, so, a few of them are no longer with us, but they were great supporters at the time, and they still are. When I say no longer with us, I mean they're still in business. Okay, yeah, I didn't want to make it sound like this.
Wait a second.
Yeah, let's try this again. They are still in active living businesses. They just have moved on, but they're still good friends. And also, I've had support from my wife Robin, which today is our 36th anniversary. So
congratulations! We need more applause.
Yeah, I know. 36 years of her putting up with me. That's a lot right there. And that's a good thing, to say the least, because, ups and downs and all that, but we've made it through, and I don't know if I'll have another 36 years, because we're not going to be that old, but I hope to have several more, a dozen more, 2 dozen more, who knows. But thank you, Robin, for everything you do. You're the foundation of my success, and always have been.
Aww.
Yeah. So, as you could tell, we have a little different format today. We have a different logo. And a little in the background, it's got the flag waving over by City Hall and all this other business. It's looking great. Also, we have the new intro music. Reagan James had provided us with the music for 600 shows. And we got that in the bullpen in case you want to use it again. But thank you, Reagan, for that. And so now we're going to have a little different presentation. Tell us about the new technical stuff, Taylor.
We're all in over here. We got all new lighting. If you can't tell,
I can
started
tell.
ordering the cameras. So new cameras are coming.
I think the lighting is really good because it's a little softer lighting.
Yeah.
And the new cameras are going to give it even more of a professional presentation. I'm telling you guys, if you're looking to do a podcast, this is where it's at.
Fill it up fast.
Yeah, well, good. You want a presentation that you could show people, show potential sponsors, that it isn't some hostage video done in the basement, but it's it looks good, that has a high professional quality to
around.
It. I think so. I've had people say that they were surprised that when they walk in the studio, they're thinking it's going to be, me on my laptop or something like that. And they come in here and they see the cameras and the multiple screens and the lighting and whatnot. And I think it's caught on because this is the first time I don't have a guest on since late March. And I did that intentionally because I want to do the 600 show kind of the old-fashioned way, a little bit of ranting and raving about what's going on in the world, but also be able to talk about these kind of things. Also, I think our next open date is after July 4th.
Wow.
Yeah. Usually summer doesn't fill up that quick because of, vacations and whatnot. And a couple of my routine show guests like BISD, they take a break and whatnot. And so I don't always fill up. I have some open dates in July, and I still got a bunch in August. But that people are calling and want to be part of the show, and I'm really glad of it. It's a great thing. Like, for example, Thursday, when I'm calling Gregory on with the police association, or police department is a better way to put it, with Burleson Police, and he's going to be talking about the Victims Assistance Program and all the upgrades they've made. So I'm telling you, if you want to do a podcast, you want to do some commercial work, call Taylor, because he's going to make you look good, even because he's done it for me, and I can tell you, people walk in and go, "Oh, I thought you'd be taller." Anyway, stuff like that. Today I'm going to talk about various things going on. I haven't had a chance to do that. I'm talking about the Trump trial and what I think about it, what the smart guys think about it, and what I see going on there. Also, a little bit about what happened last week at Texas Republican Party convention. Today is runoff day. Now, by the time you hear this, you may have already voted, or maybe if you hear this tomorrow, it'll be too late. But I think it's incredibly important that we get out there and support Dwayne Burns. I've made it no secret whatsoever that this is the candidate I thoroughly support. And I hope if you hear this and said it's time to go vote, don't let the weather keep you from doing it, because when I read about what went on in the Texas GOP convention last weekend, in San Antonio, I have some concerns about it. I consider myself Republican, but I don't know if they'd consider me one after what I read on this. So there you go. But let's talk about our sponsors, because like I said, they make this all possible. First of all, Otto at our place, great place as always. The service is great. The food is great. It's a very comfortable atmosphere, and he's replicated that very well over at Gina's. I was there last Thursday with a friend, and it's just he was really impressed. It's a nice place. The great pizza, got the blues playing in the background, got the ball game on the TV. It's what you want, and so it's a great place to go. And we got there kind of early, and by the time we left, about an hour and a half later, it was almost full. So that Gina's is really taken off in a big hurry, and Otto wanted me to express his gratitude to all of y'all for making that happen. Also, Wild Cigar and Culture, I'll be visiting with Nathan tomorrow, find out what's going on this summer. I know they got a lot of vendors coming in, for cigar vendors coming in the next couple of months, because they are a routine stop for the cigar vendors of this area. I mean, they're not just for the Burleson DFW area. I'm talking about this part of the United States. They are a must-go stop for a lot of the vendors, and so they get a lot of really good deals going on over there, Wild Cigar and Culture. And they also have the great bar, and they also have the great atmosphere. Father's Day is coming up, so get some gift certificates over there, if you will. Also, thank you to Tiffany Nico. Next week, the magazine will be out. Local Life magazine, always really good. Always goes to 30,000 plus. I mean, every month they add a few more addresses to that list, because Burleson's growing, and people want to know what's going on here in Burleson. They want to know where the businesses are and what the ads are and whatnot. Tiffany does a really, really good job. Very high quality production, and it goes very directly to the buyer that you're looking for as a business. It's not some indiscriminate ad or just widespread and hope you hit some. This goes right to the people that'll be supporting your business. So talk to Tiffany about jumping on with the Local Life magazine. Also, locallifetx.com is the digital version, and you can catch up with what's going on there. Thank you also, Southern Gem, and my beloved bride is still working there, even on anniversary day. So I've already been hit up about, jewelry and anniversary kind of go together, don't you? And we'll see. Anyway, but Southern Gem is a great place to do that kind of thing. It has great inventory, it has repairs, it has designs, it has cleaning, great staff. And I'm not just saying that because it's my wife. I mean, the other ladies are wonderful ladies, and Gail runs a good shop. And so it's a good place to go for gifts and whatnot. I guess graduation gifts, some sort of token for your son or daughter. That's a big deal, graduation. I bet you, Taylor, you remember your graduation day?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, my class was so big, we did it at Moody Coliseum at SMU. And it was like running across that stage to get it done in time to get here's your diploma, now beat it. But there you go. It's a big deal. Back to Southern Gem, though. Southern Gem will take care of what you need. Also, if you'd like to have your home clean for the summer, some sort of routine maintenance or deep clean, call Two Maids. Call Brent Ramirez at 817-764-0733 or at twomaidscleaning.com/Burleson. They'll come and do various types of programs. So they'll work with your budget. They'll work with your time schedule. If you want to do something for mom, or your wife, whatnot. Oh, I hear anniversary present again. Have her come by and see what kind of programs they can offer. They can work with your budget. So it's not just one size fits all, and they get paid based on how you rate them. So you're going to get a good quality job. I've asked Brenda, do they get, somebody that may want to, be cranky about things and whatever else. And she said in all their experience, they've only had one customer that did not give them 5 stars. They gave them 4 stars. Okay. I don't know why they didn't get that 5th star, but every other one has been 5 stars. Because that's the kind of job that they do. Also, Old Pro Roofing, boy, howdy. John, I bet his phone is ringing off the hook at 817-734-2756. Burleson got spared some of it, but I have a lot of friends over in Collin County, and they got hammered. So I bet John will be over there, because Old Pro does all over the DFW area. A couple of months ago, they were up in Little Elm doing business. So they'll go anywhere they need to. They're not the kind that goes to Houston and knocks on doors. They're a local outfit here in Burleson. And I bet you they're going to be busy. And so we'll see about what John will be doing. I had my roof inspected by him about about 11 months ago. And I'm going to have it done again. I'm going to do it on an annual basis because he'll tell you that if you don't do it on an annual basis, the insurance companies may use that as a reason why to decline your coverage. So call John, have him check it out. Also, thank you to Camco. The mortgage rates are here, there, and everywhere. I don't understand them. I don't understand what drives them. And I like to think I'm a well-read person, but it is confusing even for the smart people. So if you want to talk to Sammy and Candy, they're the real smart people. They know how to get this taken care of, and they'll be able to explain to you what's going on with mortgage rates. 817-778-4592. For Sammy, Candy is 817-925-2661. And they'll tell you if you're refinancing or looking for a new mortgage or whatnot, they'll help you out. I've done business with them twice over the last 20 years for house repairs and college expense and whatever else, and they really make it easy, a complex situation easy. Also, Jeff Kelly over at the Wethington Agency. He has some houses for sale. Check out his Facebook page. I share it with you when I get it as well. He's got some really nice houses that are available. 817-781-0546, 817-720-6300 to get you his office number, or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. You know, again, the real estate market is confusing because you read national reports and it sounds like it's doing this, that, and the other, but it really doesn't matter what's going on in Arizona or Georgia or something like that. What matters is what's going on here. And that's the important thing. Hey, Taylor, can I ask you to shut the door on the studio? The ladies across the hall are having too good a time. We got a little business across the hall, and doggone it, they're laughing and carrying on. And you think, don't they know there's a show going on? Doggone them. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today? I mentioned changes in the studio. By the way, Taylor, when will those new cameras be in, do you think?
The first one shipped today. So the quicker we add shows, the quicker we buy cameras.
Yeah. Also, Taylor, I don't have the link yet.
One second.
Try it again. Okay. Because good. So we'll probably a couple of weeks we'll be fully stocked, whatever you want to say, and then we'll be good to go. One thing we're going to talk about, three basic things. One is the Trump trial. The other is the Hunter Biden trial. And then what happened at the Texas GOP convention last week, which is interesting news, to say the least, since we're talking about these things now. Okay, when I sit there and do what I have to do here, try to do this when the guest is talking, so I'll be more discreet, but I'm not that discreet. It's kind of a running gag on this show for the last 600. You think after 600 episodes, I know how to do this better.
At least your volume's turned down today.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'm just doing this, and there's one there, and then there's, there's my municipal matters. Got to have them because Burleson residents and neighbors, of course. There's several good ones here. 817 Live, the area small businesses I do, things of that nature. Okay. One more. I'm going to do political facts because why not? This is about a political show. But anyway, we're going to talk about the Trump trial because the Trump trial today, as we speak, we are having the closing arguments. The defense goes first and then the prosecution. And this whole trial, I've been paying pretty close attention. I haven't been grinding in on it like it's a daily obsession, but I have been looking on it, pretty closely because I think it's important that what's going on here, because the possibility, there it is, the possibility of Trump being convicted is still there. Okay, there's three basic options, obviously: conviction, acquittal, and hung jury. I'll go over what I think at the end of this segment, but the point is that this is fairly significant, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions about this trial, and I've been reading about it. I've been reading from people who like Trump and don't like Trump. I've been reading from the liberal and conservative point of views, so I have a balanced idea of what's going on, and I've come to several conclusions. And my gut feeling about this is that it's going to result in a hung jury. An acquittal is going to be very difficult to achieve with 12 people, but also a conviction might be very difficult. And there's several reasons, because there's been several holes in the prosecution in this case, to say the least. But there's some factors that mitigate all this. One is, I just won't go down in no particular order. One is Mr. Trump has made this more difficult on himself than he needs to be. his behavior during the trial itself, and then his postings on Truth Social and that had just made it more difficult for the jury to acquit him, because some of the things that Trump has said has been borderline harassment of jurors. Now, as far as the harassment of the judge, well, I got an opinion about that judge too, not a good one, frankly. But he, Trump really probably needs to be careful about what he says about the jury and the jury system and the people of Manhattan and whatever else, because it's not going to help his cause. He'd been better off saying, I trust in the judgment of the people and all this other stuff. But I think he's already setting up himself that if he isn't acquitted, he can accuse the jury of being biased and, against him because they're from Manhattan, which is, he's very, very unpopular in, big town New York. Maybe not in the Bronx. I read about that too. But as far as my point is that he hasn't made it easy on himself with some of his conduct and some of his comments during the trial. Now, when he comes out of the trial and he says, I'm innocent and I'm getting hosed, all this, well, that's what you expect him to say, right? That's not what I'm really talking about. I'm talking about on social media, and I'm talking about during the trial itself. He has made it more difficult for the jury to acquit, or at least find a hung jury. Second of all, there are a lot of problems in this trial itself. I just mentioned Trump's behavior, but the prosecution has made some mistakes. But they brought Michael Cohen on as their star witness. And Michael Cohen already has been convicted of perjury. Now, the thing is, the prosecution didn't try to hide that. And I read some articles that, frankly, are above my pay grade in legalese and legal situations. So I had to read it 2 or 3 times. I read a couple of them by Andrew McCarthy of National Review, and I had a hard time following them because I'm not a lawyer. But basically, the prosecution set up Cohen as their star witness, and then when the defense got a hold of him, and they punched holes all over his story, and they found contradictions in what Cohen had said. Plus, Cohen has made himself, again, like Trump, and kind of a target on social media. He's been on podcasts, and he has his own podcast. He's tried to monetize this whole situation with a GoFundMe type campaign. He has made a lot of comments. He's made it overtly clear, without any doubt, that he is a biased individual when it comes to the conduct and the prosecution of this trial. So he's perjured himself in this trial in a couple of places. But Cohen is an egregious character. There's really nothing good I can say about him. And he has been had his story had holes punched through more than once. But so the prosecution has made mistakes, but so has the defense. The defense has made some mistakes as well, because they have not pushed back on certain testimony that they should have more, or they didn't object in certain times when they should have, things like that. They also brought a defense witness, a lawyer that had worked with Cohen, a guy named Robert Costello, and they thought he would be a slam dunk, and he turned out to be a pretty poor witness on Mr. Trump's behalf, and so that was a mistake. Sometimes you don't know these mistakes till after you made them, but there you go. Another mistake was the judge is the biggest problem in this trial. Okay, I'll try to be as objective as I can, but the judge has made a hash of this trial, and he's done everything he can to help the prosecution's case. If Trump does end up convicted, Judge Robert Merchan of New York, has achieved his goal. Okay, he has not been an impartial judge. Now, it sounds like I'm being a big Trump fan. I hope people who've listened to this show more than once or twice understand that my view of Mr. Trump is pretty grim. All right, I'm not a big Trump fan. There's some policies I agree with, but as a personality and the way he conducts himself and all this hollering and yelling on social media and some of his more flamboyant statements, I do not care for one bit. And I have real problems with Mr. Trump. But I do believe that this judge came into this trial looking to convict Donald Trump. What he's allowed to go on that trial, the way he has sustained almost every prosecution objection, the way he's denied a lot of the defense objections, the way he's allowed testimony to come in, and then turn around after it's over and said, oh, I shouldn't let you do that. And in particular, Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels, that testimony was lurid. It was very detailed. We didn't have to hear all these details. Has nothing to do with the case. The case, and in fact, I'm going to get to that in a minute. The case is very, very vague as to what exactly is Mr. Trump being tried for. But she had no legal expertise in this whatsoever, and she got to spend all this time talking about her encounter, the physical encounter she had with Mr. Trump, in great detail, in disgusting detail. And then after it was over, the judge says, I probably shouldn't let you hear that. It was very prejudicial. Now, we're not convicting Donald Trump whether he's a great husband or not. I think the court of public opinion has already passed judgment on that. But it had no business being in the trial. But he allowed it to happen. And then says, well, maybe I shouldn't let you hear that. It was totally prejudicial. It was designed by the prosecution with the acquiescence of the judge to paint Mr. Trump in the most lurid way possible. And here's another one I don't understand as well. The federal government, under the Biden-led, Merrill Garland-led Justice Department, did not find enough evidence to bring a federal case against Mr. Trump. Neither did the Federal Election Commission. And one of the commissioners, a guy named Bradley Smith was going to testify that the FEC looked into this very thing that supposedly Alvin Bragg and the New York DA is looking into. And they said they didn't find a crime that was committed. Paying off people with a non-disclosure agreement is not a campaign expenditure, according to the FEC. The way they judge that is, would Mr. Trump have paid that had he not be a candidate? And the FEC said yes, because it was still embarrassing information, and he was still a public figure, and he was still on The Apprentice and all this other stuff. And so he would have reason to say easily, I didn't pay her off for the election purposes. I paid her off because it was embarrassing to my family and would have hurt my program on NBC. Now, you say, logically, he's a presidential candidate. Wouldn't that also been a factor? The FEC, in effect, said, we can't make that assumption. You could say that common sense wise or whatever all you want, but as a legal matter, we can't make that assumption. And so they passed on it, both of them. And Bradley Smith was set to testify, and the judge said he could not, and they can't even bring into evidence what the government had said about this. I don't know why. I really don't. There may be some technical reason, but I couldn't understand it, and I don't know why. But the judge would not allow that evidence to be brought into the court, nor would he allow Mr. Smith to come in and testify on behalf of Mr. Trump to say that the FEC did not find a crime to be committed here. What crime is Mr. Trump being accused of? That hasn't even been expressly put out there. What the crime theoretically is that Trump and his organization mischaracterized, misled what an expenditure was as an expenditure of a different kind, as a bookkeeping legerdemain, hocus pocus, whatever, which is a misdemeanor in New York. But they're saying that misdemeanor is tied into a larger crime, which is to affect the election, which is not a state crime. It is a federal crime. So what they're saying is that he committed this misdemeanor in order to commit a federal crime. Well, that's not his jurisdiction, Mr. Bragg's jurisdiction. And the federal government on two different organizations said the same thing. So that's why I think that this trial really is a scam. And that's why I don't think it has the impact that I think that most people thought it would. Because a lot of people who don't like Trump at all, I mean, I'm reading National Review, Wall Street Journal despise Donald Trump, okay? They don't consider himself a real conservative at all. And they are not unaware of his flamboyant statement, shall we say, that could cause people trouble. Yet they are unified that this is not a legitimate case. Now, I'm watching the clips from the other shows. You can expect Fox to be going off the chain. MSNBC is convinced that he will be convicted. CNN, for whatever credit you want to give them, is the only one that's been kind of like, well, this is really what's happening. They've had several of their guests say, expect a hung jury, because all it takes is one. And the Trump people have made enough smoke around Michael Cohen and his unreliability to bring in that reasonable doubt factor. And that's what I think should happen here, is a hung jury. Is he going to be acquitted? It's not going to happen. Okay, and I'll be shocked. I'll be less shocked, but I'll be a little bit surprised if he's convicted. I think it'll be a hung jury. But in my view, whatever, if it is a hung jury, that means that the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, could bring the case again. Good luck with that. Because it'll be well after the election, and either Trump will be a president or he'll be a civilian, and people won't care, particularly if it's the latter. Also, if he is convicted, there are numerous opportunities, from what I've read, for an appeal to be upheld. That the Trump trial, the Trump defense team has a lot of targets in which to appeal, particularly, like I mentioned, the decisions made by the judge. Now, all this being said, it's a sordid business. I'm not trying to defend his behavior one iota. And if that's a factor in how you vote for him, how he conducted himself in this trial or with Ms. Daniels, whatever, that's up to you. I mean, that's what your vote is about. It's your choice and whatever. And if it costs him the election, well, Mr. Trump really, should think twice before hanging around porn stars and that kind of crowd and hang around people like Michael Cohen and employ people like that. Will it affect the trial, or rather the election? Let's see. I sent Taylor a couple of clips. Put the first one on, and the swing state averages. That was the second one I sent you, Taylor.
Battlegrounds?
Yeah, it's the one. That's the one. Yeah, the battleground polls. Right now, this is what, as of last night, I think it hadn't changed since this morning. So anyway, this is what's going on in the battleground states. Now, let's be very clear. Mr. Biden's going to win the popular vote, but just California alone will do it. One of the things is that people don't understand this about the 2016 election. Up until California, Trump actually was winning in the popular vote. And then California comes in and it's so overwhelmingly Democrat, and it's such a big state that it threw the popular vote to Hillary Clinton. And that'll probably happen something like this time. But you look at the battleground states, and here's my sage political advice, so to speak, is that there's going to be about 3 states in which it all boils down to: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. These 7 states were the battleground states in the last election, and of all of them, Mr. Biden won all but North Carolina, and he didn't win by much there. Trump did. Trump won North Carolina, but not by much. But it's considered a battleground state. But you look at Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada. All of them, Mr. Trump is in the average leads and has been since really the beginning of the calendar year. That's what's got the pollsters. I'm trying to mess with this arm a little bit. Here we go. That's what got the pollsters so confused, because they expected that maybe Trump might have a lead and whatnot. But what's happened is that it's been consistent. Now, of course, you look at Wisconsin; it's only by 0.1. Now, I'm not going to grind into every one of these states, but almost every one of them that are this close, that one and Michigan, which is at 1.1, they take the average of these polls, and there's like one poll that's kind of outside, an outlier that's been pro-Biden. Like in Wisconsin, all of them are like within 1 or 2 points, except for one that's pro-Biden. It's like 6. And so it kind of distorts the averages. But are these averages legitimate? The answer is they're a lot more accurate than you think. A lot of people say, the polls don't matter, and they don't matter. The polls are more accurate than they think. And the Biden administration is saying it's all rubbish, that these polls are not any good, they're biased, whatever else. Yet they weren't saying that in 2020, when all these little red lines, so to speak, all these little positives for Trump were all positives for Biden, except for North Carolina again. And as far as how accurate were these polls compared to the actual voting, they were within the margin of error, as they say. It wasn't exactly 100%, but it was within a couple of points, which is considered in statistic world pretty accurate. Now, am I saying Trump's going to win the election? I would say at this point right now, he's in the leadership position. Not nationally so much, even though in the national he's like 1.1. You throw in Robert Kennedy and a couple others, and it broadens just a little bit. But the national poll, guys, is not the one I look at. I look at these polls. The national poll, they're polling all across the United States, and that's going to include some pretty heavy Democrat areas: New York, Illinois, California, et cetera. And so, it's not quite that accurate, but polls routinely are fairly accurate. We don't like to think that, because sometimes we don't like the news they bring us, but they are fairly accurate. I would say that, does that mean that Trump's going to win all these states? No. If Biden won Wisconsin by 0.01, this is still an accurate poll, even though it said Trump by 0.01, because it's well within the margin of error. Now, you look at another state, let's take Nevada. He's up by 5.3. If Biden did win that state, and all these numbers were the same and going into the election, and Trump lost Nevada, then that would be a very inaccurate poll. All those polls. But see, this is not one poll. This is a compilation. All these states are compilations of several polls. Real Clear Average does several polls. Pull up the next one on Biden's approval rating. All right. So you can see this is the approval rating, and this is all the different polls you could see that they have could go into those to those averages. And right now he's at 16.2. I think 16.1 is last I saw this morning. It didn't make any difference. But you look at how consistent the negative reactions are, negative ratings are. No president has ever gone into an election with this kind of average negative job approval. Carter, even the worst days of Carter, was polling better than this. Carter actually was winning in the polls in the 1980 election up until October, and then it all fell apart. And then the debate had something to do with that and all this other stuff. And then he gets waxed in the election. But no, I'm looking at this and I'm just astounded. And the Democrats, are starting to panic. There's a headline article in today's Politico, which I advise. That's a good webpage to read. Politico is fairly unbiased. I mean, they got editorials and all that are one way or the other, but their reporting itself is pretty unbiased. And the Democrats are starting to get a little bit nervous because what happens with elections quite often is two things. That for people who are going to probably vote, their mind's already made up. And a lot of times these poll numbers kind of get permanent or cemented in place by midsummer. And so you don't really get a lot of change. And those few people that are not going to be out there voting very much in most elections, they may vote in a presidential election, but that's about it. They'll start swinging towards one way or the other. You get a momentum in the last 2-3 weeks. This has happened. I teach this in class. I remember the Obama-McCain election. Obama and McCain were dead heat just about going into October, but the last 3 to 4 weeks, it started breaking for Mr. Obama. Same thing happened for Mr. Trump in 2016, happened to Mr. Reagan in 1980, is that, the undecided said, okay, I think this guy's going to win. I want to be on the winning team. And there must be a reason why Mr. Biden is not pulling in better than this, so they'll vote for Mr. Trump, I think. If these numbers stay the same. Now, will conviction change that? They all say that, but I have to see it now because I thought that would be the case 2 months ago, but I'm not so sure now. And it might change it on the margins, but there you are. The Biden administration, the Biden campaign is flabbergasted why Biden's numbers aren't better. And he's being told, quit talking about how great the economy is. You're bragging about all these jobs and all these stats, but people still aren't thinking that way. The majority of people, I think in the mid-50s, if I saw the last poll, think the economy is fair or poor. And they'll say, wait, look at this number, look at the GDP, look at the unemployment rate, and people aren't impressed with that. And of course, then you got Mr. Biden himself, who, I don't want to get into all Mr. Biden's problems. We know what they are, but yesterday he offended a lot of veterans. He talked about how his son Bo died in Iraq. His son did not die in Iraq. He died of brain cancer in 2016. Now, that's tragic all on its own, but why try to make that a political point? He does that quite often, but that's for another show about Mr. Biden himself, because I really want to talk about the election and the trial. My point right now is I have been mildly surprised how static, how stable the polls have been week after week, month after month, particularly at the state level. And particularly also with the approval and disapproval ratings. There has not been a swing towards improvement after all this time. And I just can't imagine in the last 5 months we got before the election, we're going to have one. Okay? There's a couple other factors that are hanging out there. We have a debate on June 27th. I remember the first Biden-Trump debate, and Trump absolutely acted like a juvenile delinquent. He was terrible. He was hassling Joe Biden. He was calling him all stuff. He was over-talking. He was just, it was an egregious, terrible performance. And I remember talking to a couple of people and that were somewhat pro-Trump, and he said he just lost the election because he was such a petulant man on that stage. If Trump can go up there, this is a big if, but if he can go up there on June 27th and just be rational and act with some decorum, Joe will fall into his own hole. He'll be bragging about things. One thing he said on CNN 2 weeks ago that he inherited 9% inflation. That's totally false. And if he says that in a debate, they'll kill him. And same thing with all these other bragging issues of his. They'll destroy him on that. And so, so if that debate could change a few minds, but it'll change him for Trump if he just doesn't act like a hoodlum on the stage. Just acts like semi-rational, sane person and answer the questions without getting into all the abuse that he did in that first debate 4 years ago. Second is the convention in Chicago for the Democrats. That's going to be a disaster. You're going to have massive protests about Gaza and various other things. And Chicago is led by a very, very left-wing anti-police mayor named Brandon Johnson. And he all but said was he is in sympathy with the protesters. So he's all but ordered the police. They are not going to crack down. You're not going to see, I don't think, the Chicago of 1968 where you see helmeted police officers, swinging batons and billy clubs. I think what you're going to see is chaos, though, in Chicago. In fact, the Democrat Party is already in serious conversation about having most of the speakers come in on Zoom as opposed to actually go to Chicago and talk on the stage, including the president. Why? Because of security-related issues. They're talking about instead of having the president give that big speech or the candidate, whatever else on the last night of convention, they're talking about him doing it on Zoom, type of, streaming in. And several of the other keynote speakers, same thing, because they're afraid of the chaos that's going to go on. They're talking about if it gets even worse, they may end up doing what they did in 2020, which was a virtual convention due to COVID. But this ain't because of COVID. It's because they were afraid of the chaos of Chicago. So we'll see what happens with that. And then, of course, there's always Gaza. And if there's, God forbid, there's some kind of event that involves American personnel, some sort of terrorist attack or attack on that pier or whatever else, there you go. Okay. Let's talk about Hunter Biden. His trial starts Monday over in Delaware for falsifying his gun application. It is a felony. This is a big deal to lie on the federal form when you're applying for a gun application. And it's usually followed with jail time. And I promise you, had Hunter Biden been some black kid from Dallas that this happened, that kid would be in jail because that's what happens. Gun crimes are taken very, very seriously. But because it's Joe Biden's son, they almost got away with almost nothing. If it weren't for the judge in Delaware who denied his plea agreement about a year ago, we wouldn't be having this trial. And the plea agreement would have involved no jail time, no admission of guilt, basically a fine, and he'd have to take a class on gun safety. And that's it. And that kind of deal is not available to the average citizen very often. Like I said, if there was some young kid of color here in Dallas or Fort Worth, there would be no plea agreement like that. There's no question about it. But because it's Hunter Biden, they almost got away with it. But the judge said, this is ridiculous, I'm not accepting it, and they're going to have a trial. And they've done, the Hunter Biden team has done everything they can to delay the trial. The judge says, no, we will have a trial. And so it starts on Monday. And one of the key witnesses is his Hunter Biden's sister-in-law. Now, that's a weird story. The sister-in-law is the widow of Beau Biden. Beau Biden died, like I mentioned earlier, in 2016. And the widow's named Haley. And Hunter and Haley began hooking up and living together and having a relationship of all kinds for a couple of years after. And about a year after Bo died, Hunter and Bo's widow got together and were living together and things like that. And where she observed all these, his drug use and all this other stuff. And last night, surprise, Joe Biden just happened to pay a visit to Haley Biden's home. Oh, just to catch up, no doubt. That's called jury tampering, or that's called witness tampering, rather. But that's fine. But she's on record about what he did, and she's supposed to testify. So she gets up there and says, well, I was lying, then she just perjured herself. So it's not going to do any good. But the point is that Hunter Biden, even the people that like Joe Biden said this is a slam dunk case. I mean, there's no question. He lied on the form, and one of the questions he lied on was, are you involved in drugs and whatnot? And he was right in the middle of addiction by his own admission. So, and so the guilty, it's going to be a guilty plea. Well, not guilty plea, but it's going to be a guilty result, I'm almost sure. Now, I don't know what kind of punishment he's going to get. Will he go to jail or not? Depends. Second of all, in September, he has another trial for tax evasion. What he had done is, and this is in California, I believe in San Diego, but what he had done is he had put a lot of expenses of his lifestyle and put them down as legal expenses or business expenses. A lot of these expenses were visits to prostitutes, drug purchases, money with strippers that he spent on, stripper parties and stuff like that. And he all put it down as legal expenses and other business related and had it deducted from his taxes. He's on the record as not paying over $1 million worth of taxes. And again, they've been trying to postpone this case, and the judge in California said, nope, we will see you in September. It's very, very likely by the time election's held that Hunter Biden will have 2 convictions on his record in federal court. The irony of all of this is, Trump has still got 3 other trials to go, but they're not going to be held until after the election. We could go into that election, and Hunter Biden may be the only person in this whole area that's been convicted and sentenced. And, I'm sure that's going to come up in the debates and other things as well, because by the time the debate happens, probably that trial in Delaware will be over. It's not going to be a long trial. All right. One last thing, when I segue into this, the Texas GOP, like I mentioned, this is the runoff day for Dwayne Burns. And, I've made absolutely no secret of my support and like to run one of the reels we had, because this has been emblematic of the type of campaign we've been having over the last few months. Lying Dwayne Burns, liberal Dwayne Burns, Burns voted with Democrats. And I think he came on the show, the day was the 14th of this month, and he came on it, and I think he was able to refute a great deal of those things. But I've never seen a campaign like this. I've seen campaigns where the Democrats may do this against Republicans and vice versa. I've never seen an inter-party campaign system like this. Not just Burns, but 3 or 4 other people that are running in runoffs today, Republican incumbents, that have been absolutely savaged by their own party. I've never seen that before. Taylor, run that clip that we set up. This is the one where he refutes one of the more egregious accusations.
These outside groups have done extensive polling. They've learned and they know what the hot button issues are that poke people, that move people, that make them angry or fear. And they know that the best way to motivate folks is through fear or anger. And so they're trying to make people angry at me or fear me. One of the things that they say is that I voted to raise property taxes. Yes. Not true. Voted for the largest property tax cut in history.
That's what I was thinking, one in particular. I know that's not true.
I have worked overtime on that, but I'm a proponent of eliminating all or at least a portion of it, but all of property taxes if possible. And I'm for looking into that and doing it. And I carried a constitutional amendment that said we will no longer issue state unfunded mandates on local governments, because what does that do? Raises your property taxes. When we send a job to the local government and they can't afford to do it, they have to raise property taxes to do that.
Last weekend in San Antonio, the Texas GOP had their convention, and they put out their platforms, 250 planks. But there's 2 or 3 things that come out that really bother me. quite a bit. I consider myself conservative, but I'm getting to the point where it's not so much I don't consider myself a Republican, but I'm not going to be considered a Republican by them because I don't agree with every one of their planks. And they have said explicitly, to be considered to be a Republican and to run for office in this state, you have to agree to the platform. And that's not a euphemism. That was passed and amended to the Texas GOP platform. That adherence to the platform is going to be the key criteria whether or not you can run as a candidate or not. So you look at somebody like Mr. Burns. Under this new criteria, he would not have been allowed to run. And I don't want to say not allowed to run. The Texas Republican Party would instruct the county GOP officials at the various county levels and give them the authority to take them off the county ballots. So the counties run our elections, okay? I'm sure you all know much about that, but, that's pretty commonly known. But the counties are responsible for conducting the elections. And the parties, when it comes to primaries, handle their own business internally. As long as they don't violate civil rights and the Civil Rights Voting Act and things of that nature, they have a pretty free hand in how they conduct these things. And now the county leadership of the GOP has the authority to take Dwayne Burns off the ballot next time. Even Dwayne Burns wins today, which is my hope. He may be taken off the ballot next year if he doesn't vote exactly the way the platform says. If he continues to vote against vouchers, for example, like he said he would, then he could be taken off the ballot here in Johnson County and probably Somerville County too. If let's say that, I have no ambition to do this, but I wanted to run for the Republicans for some office, statewide even. I can be taken off the county ballots if I don't agree to some of the planks of the platform. And some of them, like I said, I don't disagree with, and some of them I do. I don't think, when it comes to like sports, I don't think transgenders should play female sports. All right, I'm not anti-trans or any of this crap, but so let's not pile on like that. But I do believe there has to be a line drawn, and girls' sports should remain for girls. All right, same thing with some of the border issues. Same thing with the other security-related issues. But basically, there's some areas that really give me pause. And the thing about it is, I hate this idea that if you're opposed or have questions about these particular policies, well, then you must be a Democrat, or you must be a communist, or you must be an atheist, or whatever. And it's just rubbish. But here, I'm reading out of the Dallas Morning News primarily. So here it is. One of the things that Texas Republicans want to do is make our primaries closed. What that means is you have to be a registered Republican or registered Democrat to vote, which is the way a lot of states do it. Oklahoma is my usual example. If you want to vote in those primaries, when you register to vote, you have to check the box. Well, we don't have that box to check here. They want to close the primaries. The Republicans do. Okay, I don't know if that's a great idea, but it's not an earth-shattering idea. It's been brought up before, but they can pretty much do it. Now, how would they know if you're a Republican or not if we don't register by state? At the state level, rather. Let me rephrase. If you don't register at the state level, how would they know if you're a Republican or not? Well, they want to change the law, which I think they can in the next session. Or they want you to register with the party itself, where they can reject your party application. You're going to register, like if I want to vote in a primary here, I have to register with Johnson County Republicans. And they could take me off that registration anytime they want. They heard the podcast they didn't like, or they just think I'm a jackass anyway, or I'm not supportive enough, or you fill in the blank, I could be removed from that. So I would have to register with the party, not with the state. And that's a big change. We don't register with the party when we vote. We register with the state in which we reside. Now, like I said, many states, like Iowa, like Oklahoma, like New York, you check a box saying, I'm a registered Republican, Democrat, or Independent. All that does is it allows you to vote in the primaries. It has nothing to do with how you vote in the general. Okay, Florida comes to mind also is like that. They have closed primaries. Okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But you didn't register in Florida. You did not register with the Florida Republican Party. You registered with the state of Florida, the state of Iowa, the state of New York. Here, we would not register with the state of Texas. We just register with the Republican Party, who could take you off anytime they want to. And that's why I'm very much opposed to this idea. If they want to change the law and make it closed primaries, change the law. But don't bypass it by putting the power of whether or not you vote in a primary in the hands of a few people in Cleburne or in the Burleson area, whomever else, who may have an axe to grind. Okay. Here, the proposed platform seeks a more prominent role for Christianity in public schools by requiring instruction on the Bible, servant leadership, and Christian self-governance. Now, I don't have to defend my Christian faith to anybody, but I'd have a real problem with this. Why? It's not because I'm so adamant about church and state. It's because people think that when they pass these kind of laws, the person teaching this Christian instruction has the same view of the scripture as they do, that everybody comes to the same conclusion about particular scripture. That's not the case. I have genuine Christian brothers and sisters whom we disagree with interpretations of certain parts of scripture. I have people that have a very different understanding about what this particular verse may mean. And they're as Christian as I am. So you can have a situation where you could have a teacher, man or woman, who gets up there and they have a particular view, or they may have a particular agenda about this, and they're going to be enabled to teach that way. And you, as a parent, they say, "Wait a minute, that's not what our church believes. That's not what our pastor preaches," and you're going to have very little to do about that. So we don't need that in the schools. We need that in the homes. That's another thing they talk about. If we had this going on in the schools, society would be better. Society would be a whole lot better if this was going on in the homes more than the schools. It would reflect itself in the schools, not have to have the government mandate it. If prayer and Bible study and Bible living was going on in the homes, it would be reflected in our public institutions, and we would not have to have government mandates to make this happen. So I would tell the Texas GOP, worry about the homes more than you worry about what some teacher in Austin may be doing. Okay? So that's another one. Also, the platform also seeks to expand curriculum requirements to teach students that life begins at fertilization, witness a live ultrasound, and view for high schoolers anti-abortion videos. I am pro-life. But I don't know if this, again, is something we need to be indoctrinating. If this was being done at the home, your views on this issue would be formed and not have to be instigated by the state. Does it sound like a good idea? I think it's a good idea in a private school setting, but in a public school setting, you can't involve students in a captive audience in these kind of situations. And that's the reality. And that's, I guess, one of the biggest reasons why people are supportive of vouchers, because they want to take their kids out of that situation. I know for a fact this kind of opt-out already exists in the public schools. I know at BISD, at BHS, when we had somebody that may have objected to a certain piece of literature, they had the option to opt out. That existed for history classes too, but I don't remember anybody ever doing that. But I'm just saying that opt-out has always been there. Same thing with science. If you don't want, your kid taught evolution in the public schools, there is an opt-out. But I just have real problems with any time the state of Texas uses its ability to have a captive audience to move people in a certain political or social direction like that. All right? The schools seem to be the battleground, and then because they're so resistant to a lot of this, that's why you have so much of the voucher situation going on. Will vouchers pass in the next session? I'm thinking it will. Texas already sees itself behind the curve for some states, like Florida has a very extensive voucher system, and I think Iowa does too, but I think it's going to pass, and that's a whole nother show, but I've already expressed my concerns about that. But again, I'm just very, very concerned that the state of Texas Republican Party in particular is using the schools as a medium by which to implant and impart their particular views on politics and social issues and scripture and things of that nature. I've never seen a party in this state that's so dominated by one person, Dan Patrick in this case. And the views of Patrick and Paxton and Abbott are going to dominate the Texas Republican Party, and if they have their way, they're going to dominate a lot of this as well. What they accuse of the Democrats have been trying to do for years, they accused them of trying to use schools as an indoctrinational force. That's exactly what they're doing here. And we have no longer, as a Republican Party, been a party of ideas or a party of personalities. We don't really even bother to find out what Patrick and Trump or Cruz or any of these other people stand for is that they have the R. That's all we need to know. They told us what to think. That's why a lot of people, I don't get a lot of crap like I used to, but some people don't think I'm conservative because I'm not Republican. I can't call myself a Republican anymore. I am conservative, but I have also my own free mind. I don't like vouchers, therefore I'm not a Republican. Okay, I got some other concerns about certain things. I would say if I looked at that platform, I'd probably agree with about 65, 70% of it, but even if I disagreed on one of them, I'd be disqualified. And we're not going to be a party of personalities, or rather, I'm sorry, try it again. We're not going to be a party of ideas and programs and hopes. We're going to be a party of what does the leadership say? Am I in good standing with the leadership? And that's all that matters. If I'm a member of the House, like Mr. Burns, and I don't agree with it, then I'm no longer a Republican. No matter, Mr. Burns he's in no way liberal. He's more conservative than I am in some cases. We talked about this off the air, and there's a couple of things he supports that I have questions about, like the property tax issue and whatever else. But he is at every iota a conservative Republican, yet he's been trashed because he disagrees on one thing. Basically, it boils down to this. I'm trying to find here in all this mess of paper about what is going on with the Texas Republican Party. I'll read straight from the morning news here. If the new rules survive expected lawsuits and Texas lawmakers acquiesce, the state party can better influence GOP politics and state policies that affect Texans for years to come. Top elected leaders like Abbott are showing one issue can kill a recalcitrant lawmaker's career. Republican elected officials, candidates will now be wary of disagreeing with the party's most conservative voices. And they'll no longer represent you and me. They'll represent the leadership of the Republican Party. It doesn't matter if it's good for Johnson County or bad for Johnson County. It's what Dan Patrick says is good for Johnson County. What I'm concerned about in this one-party state is that we are having a situation where the state Republican Party are going to be so dominated by a handful of personalities that they will not represent the views and the wishes of the people of this district or this senatorial district or congressional district. That the needs of the people, conservatives like myself even, are going to be neglected or ignored because those decisions can be made in Austin by a handful of people. And the people who want to participate in this process are going to be in the hands of a few people at the county level, which may or may not be very objective in how they treat your membership and application. Now, I don't even bother responding to some people said, you're not conservative. You just think you are, but you're really a liberal. Fine. I don't care what you think about that. I know who I am. And I think people who know me know who I am. But I'm conservative because one of the most conservative principles out there is self-determination, self-expression, and freedom of thought. That is a conservative idea, and we're giving it up to the state leadership of this party. I think you need to consider that, what's going on at the state level, because it's very concerning that our ability to make decisions for ourselves here at the local level, at the school level, at the municipal level, at the county level are going to be hands in some small group outside of our control. Not everything works for big cities. That'll work for Burleson. But we're about to give that up if we continue along without pushing back against this control of Dan Patrick and his cabal of leaders. And that's all I have to say about that. How you feeling, Taylor? I feel better. I haven't had a rant like that in a while.
Glad you got that out.
Well, it's really bothering me. Well, it really bothers me because, it's not so much I'm trying to justify my conservatism to somebody on Facebook. I don't care because I know, like I said, I know who I am and how I think about these issues. And most people who know me would agree with that. But I don't want to give all that up to Dan Patrick. And that's what we're doing here. We're going to let him determine the policies that we vote on. We're going to let him determine the candidates we vote on. And, if you live in a county like I do, that the Republican Party is dominated by certain factors that, that you're not going to be able to break through on, basically we're just going to be, we're going to be recreating all the things we hate about Democrat-run states. This is an accusation that Republicans have thrown at Illinois and California and New York all this time. They're all a bunch of dominated liberals, and they don't have any room for conservatives. We're doing the same thing on the other side. We're becoming California does this. We're doing it on the other side of the spectrum here in Texas, where we don't tolerate difference of opinion, difference of ideas. We don't tolerate, opposition to what the leadership wants. That is not Texan. That's not American. And that's all there is. All right. Anyway, next week I know I have the Chamber of Commerce. We talk about the very successful weekend they just had. I want to look on the schedule. Look on the schedule here. See what else we got. The Chamber. Also on the 4th, Tuesday, we have the Man-to-Man Clark project coming back again. They just had a fundraiser about a month ago, and we're going to talk about that. And it's about colorectal cancer. We'll be looking at that. And then also, an old friend of mine, old student of mine named Brittany Parrish is going to come on the show Thursday. She's a professional bodybuilder, and I'm going to ask about that particular area and, once you get into it, what it takes and whatever else. It's just interesting because now she's, going for the professional level. So we're going to just talk about what it takes to become one of those, because I know it's become, bodybuilding's become more popular in the last few years. So we'll talk about that. So get maybe a little different tact, I'll get back on the political bandwagon pretty soon. So we'll see. All right, guys, I'll see you Thursday with Colin Gregory.